As your seeds germinate and begin to grow, it's likely you'll find yourself watering dozens to hundreds of seedlings, which can end up taking hours that you might not have available. Well, welcome back to the Mind and Soil Test Garden, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you how to build a DIY bottom watering station like this so you can water hundreds of seedlings at once and never have to individually water again. And the first thing we need to do is to collect the materials. So head to your local hardware store, and first, grab a 4-foot by 2-foot piece of plywood. The width of this ends up being the perfect size for a 10-20 seedling tray, and at 4 feet across, allows you to fit 4 trays in at once. Additionally, don't go for the thinnest options as they'll be more likely for water to seep through. Personally, I'm going with a 1/2-inch option. Next, grab a 12-foot 2x4. You can have it either cut at the store or at home. If you're cutting it at the store, ask them to cut it into 2 4-foot pieces and 2 21-inch pieces. And before leaving, also grab some 2-inch screws and a tube of caulking. I like to go with an all-purpose 100% silicone option, and I like for it to specify that it can be used on windows and doors, as that means it will bind to the wood and create a water barrier. Okay, step 2 is assembly. So first, we're going to connect the 2x4s to create a frame. So put the 48-inch piece down and then drill 2 holes through it and then connect it with the 2 screws. Repeat that on the other side and then simply connect the other 48-inch 2x4 to the bottom. Now, all we need to do is connect the plywood to the frame. But before we do that, I'm gonna take the caulking and run a bead of it all the way along the 2x4 frame. We're gonna add more caulking in a minute, but I like to do this to make sure it's extra sealed. Once that's done, you're going to take the piece of plywood on top and line it up as evenly as possible. And for gardening projects, I always go with what I call garden level, or in other words, close-ish. Now, once in place, begin adding screws to connect the plywood to the 2x4s. I personally like to use quite a few screws and to put one in about every 12 inches or so. This ensures that there aren't any areas where there could be a bit of a gap for water to get out. And it's very likely some of the caulking will seep out, which is totally fine because it means it's sealed super tight. Simply wipe it away and you'll be all good. Now, flip it over so that we can access where the water and seedlings are going to be sitting. Grab your caulking gun and run a bead of caulking along all of the wood seams. Not just the very bottom, but also going all the way up to the top where the 2x4s connect. And then go ahead and wipe those all flush as well. Once that's done, it's built, but the caulking is still wet, so let it rest for 24 hours. Now the next morning, let's test it to make sure it's water sealed. First thing I want to do is pop the trays off of the ground just a little bit so that I can see if any water is leaking. Then add about 1 inch of water to it. Do this to make sure nothing is leaking or dripping. As we can see, no water is escaping. Now grab your trays and bring them over into your bottom watering station. I like to put about 3 trays in and then fill it up so that there's about 2 inches of water in the tray. And then place your last tray in. Now you're probably wondering, how long do I leave them in for? And you could let them sit for 15 to 20 minutes, that'd totally be fine. During this time, the soil is wicking up the water from the bottom, and it's gonna do so until the seedling mix is fully saturated. So personally, I'll leave them in there for a few hours, go about my day, because once that soil is fully saturated, nothing bad's gonna happen. They're just gonna be hanging out for a little while until I remove them. Speaking of, once they're fully saturated, remove them from the bottom watering station and allow them to drip dry for a couple of minutes, or just move them directly back into your seed starting station. I absolutely love watering this way because it saves me tons of hours and ensures that the seedlings are getting a really nice deep watering. That's all for today. Give it a try. I know you're gonna love it. And subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications because next weekend I'm launching my next gardening experiment results video, which is where I tested 5 different grow lights to see which ones perform best. And as a result of that experiment, I've already replaced a whole bunch of my grow lights with my new favorite one. So stay tuned for that one, and I'll see you then.